Real people, real stories, and real challenges that break the status quo. I'm your host, Živile, and welcome to Perception Paradox. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Perception Paradox. And today I am joined by one and only Elena Poughia. She is a managing director of Dataconomy, one of the top 10 AI magazines and educational platforms in the world, with 1.5 million readers a month. That's a massive amount. And the founder of Data Natives, Europe's largest data science and AI conference, taking place annually in Berlin. She is an advocate of data privacy and AI ethics, and she has served in expert groups at the EU level, worked on multiple different projects. She is a known public speaker in major conferences, and I think I could just continue. This woman, she has so many different hats that without waiting anymore, I would like to welcome Elena to the podcast. Hello!
Hi, Živile. Thank you so much for having me. It's very nice to join you here.
Thank you for joining. I'm so glad that finally we made it happen. And I'm really excited to dive into today's episode, which actually would be about your really non-conventional career and background, right? About the technology. I really want to pick up your brains on, in general, the entrepreneurship side, from never-ending hustling to more conscious entrepreneurship and leadership. So these are more topics I would like us to cover today in the episode. But before we jump into that, I would like to ask you, how are you today? And where are you tuning in from?
Okay, I love it. That's a good starting question. I am at the moment in Athens, Greece. I was supposed to be in Sevilla in Spain. I changed my plans and stayed a bit longer. I am from Greece, so my family is here. And I'm great. I'm really happy to be having this, to actually meet you again. And we did a bit of a catch up before the podcast, so that was nice.
Good to hear. I'm glad that we made it. Too bad you did not go to Sevilla. I just went there a couple of weeks back. Incredible place, very beautiful city, town. But I'm pretty sure, knowing you and your lifestyle, you will get there. So I guess everyone would be thinking, why are we now on this podcast, and where is Elena coming from in our relationship? We met with Elena before. I think it was in Berlin in the conference Disrupt, but that was just a quick meet, say hi, bye, shared group of people, and then COVID hit. And then we got to know each other during the EU versus virus hackathon, initiated by European Innovation Council, EIC. And that's how we met each other. And I think she's one of those people from the startup scene and ecosystem whom I met in the most different environments, from the Republic conferences to some kind of just coffee meetups to almost sharing the stage after parties. And then we even went together to South Africa in the desert. So it's very beautiful to kind of get a chance to meet someone with whom you've been working or collaborating a lot, or would bump into each other on very different settings. So I'm very glad that we're into this conversation actually today. And I think that it would be very interesting to begin with your background. That was one of the things I remember that really surprised me and inspired me when we had one of our first call, where you were just sharing your feedback on my master thesis topic and how I could approach it in a different way. And I remember you were saying, yeah, but actually I'm coming from art. And then I went into this business media, and I just like to have diverse approaches. Can you walk us through your journey from business to art, to digital art, to media, journalism, and events? It's very non-linear.
Thank you, Živile, for the introduction. And actually, I love the connecting the dots of even our relationship and how multifaceted it is, and from so many different angles and perspectives. And I think for sure, we went to South Africa together in the desert, but what I recall as the most intense part of our, like, let's say relationship or getting to know each other was this EU versus virus thing, just because it was that time when the whole world was shut down, everybody was staying at home, and we ended up working like 24/7 for a hackathon to find solutions to combat COVID-19. And it was one of the most intense periods of my life, and I'm looking back at them and I'm like, okay, how did I even do that? But I think, like, as you said, like, yeah, it is a bit unconventional. I think every life story, it's different, right? And I think there are some life stories that they're more linear in terms of like the steps and the planning. And for my life, for sure, there seems to be a lot of like incidents that happened, that say the wind was blowing from a different direction and that took my ship to a different place. But yeah, I actually started by studying business. So I did an economics. So I did start with that perspective. I mean, I did not know back then that this would be useful in my life ever, but that was how I started. And then I've had a great passion for art. So I went into history of art and modern and contemporary art, and my plan was to become an art salesperson or an art curator. So I did take that let's say linear, like, or not linear, but like I decided on that path back then. I was like working for different galleries which are quite known in the art world. I also worked as a curator or assistant curator in some of the biggest art exhibitions and institutions, and I got to know so many artists, and it really broadened my perspective in life, because I think art is really feeding your soul and helping you understand, like, you know, the base of our existence and how to like connect philosophy and society, and it's the base of civilization. And I think at that point, I was just very much fascinated with art on the internet. And mind you, that was way before NFTs. It was way before like people, like, you know, it was it was like 2000. I mean, I graduated from university 2012. So I was into this world from 12 till 16, 17. The word blockchain was used like in art conventions, of course, or Bitcoin was like, it was dropped as a name, but it was not as deep as now, or it was not as popular or widely used. But I was really fascinated by all these artists making a commentary around how important our data is, how we can protect ourselves, because our data is essentially like an extension of ourselves, or around ethics using the technologies, or actually, you know, encrypting the information, potentially like peer-to-peer artworks, and also like glitching the, you know, using social media and glitching the art world, and essentially like using, like making glitches on Facebook and Twitter and whatnot. And back then, like, I think I just slowly through this information got really interested in data science, and really interested in like all the topics around how to use technology and how to comment, like how technology will shape our culture. And I remember I went to Berlin just on a trip to go to a biennale there, to the Berlin Biennale. And
I love Biennale.
I because of my background with my friends from the business and economic school in the UK, I met up with a friend who then introduced me to this person who was basically in this company builder, and they were building a media company, Dataconomy, that had to do with data science and machine learning. Back then, the term artificial intelligence was not that widely used, and they were looking for someone potentially to help them out with marketing and events. So there I was, joining the founding team, then basically like taking more responsibility, then essentially like graduating from that incubator, let's say, and managing that company. And the rest is history. I mean, I still have like a connection with the art world, and I'm actually I'm a founding member in this art queer house in Athens, which has this kind of family feeling, where we do different like workshops or seminars or performance pieces, or, you know, we bring other like different invited guests. We do cinema, like cinema movies. We do a lot of different things. We do residencies. I'm part of that, let's say, so I can keep my connection with the art world. I think I took all the tools, let's say, from what the art world could give me, and I always like to be connected and to, to be part of that ecosystem or to be part of that space, but from a different angle. And as the journey continues and I see it, like as I live through it, like, I feel like I'm constantly now even moving away from what it was with the economy and exploring potentially even new ways of doing business or new ways of existing. That's pretty much also when you met me, because after, well, or when, let's say, our trauma bonding time at the EU versus virus, after that, basically I decided to change completely my life and I became a nomad. I used to live in Berlin. I left my place in Berlin and I started traveling the world as well, exploring new possibilities of being. Just because I think that time really made me realize like how important life is, how important personal connections are. I think it was an intense time because we were all were trying to find solutions to get out of that secluded place where we were all trying to find it was a very intense, like very emotional time. After that I just became a nomad, and I think like that's when we also met last year together in South Africa, and we shared some experiences in the desert.
Yeah, that was quite funny. I thought I'm not gonna be able to make it to South Africa because I was moving to Singapore. And I remember, I think I just posted a story about some tickets through Africa. And then you texted me on Instagram and you're like, yeah, I'm flying Ethiopian Airlines. But 3 weeks later, I'm like, where are you going? Because I was trying to get from Singapore to Brazil to my friend's wedding. And then you were like, I'm going to Africa Burn, to Cape Town. And I'm like, I really wanted to go back. And then I decided not to continue my antler journey. And I'm like, And then my dad is like, is it not more convenient to fly through Cape Town? I was like, not at all, Dad, but thank you. The next thing I know, I'm buying the ticket to Africa Burn with no questions asked. And this was that one ticket available. I opened the platform and there was this one ticket available. I'm like, I'm taking it. I will figure out the rest.
No, I remember that time when you decided to come. I was like, wow, like that was everything just seemed to worked out very last minute in the best way possible. It was like, it felt like it was meant to be. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very glad. It was a very incredible experience. I'm sad I couldn't make it this year, but then maybe I will make it next year. Anyway, okay, so after COVID, you became a nomad, and then you're also in this exploration of new directions, right? How is the nomad life?
Well, it has like everything. I think like with like everything in life, it has its pros and cons. So for me, I mean, I managed to meet some incredible people, travel through civilizations, and explore different perspectives of being, which I wouldn't have seen before. And I actually managed to like get to know myself mostly the most, because like somehow when you are like, I mean, as a solo traveler as well, like going from place to place, relying on yourself, like I think managed to create like a different, I mean, and that was already something that I learned, I think, from EU versus virus, but also being a solopreneur is like you create like your own like internal core system and your own like coping mechanisms for having resilience and for overcoming difficult situations. And I think like when it comes to like traveling solo or like always existing in different places, is that you really have to like strengthen your own core, and at the same time you also see yourself reacting to different situations. I understand that when someone lives in a place all of their life, or even when they don't, they're more resistant to change. And I think that's also what I was trying, what is interesting to say about a linear or a non-linear work decision, or like life story, or like the underdogs that you're also trying to uncover, are like people not necessarily taking the path which is considered to be most I don't know if it is acceptable or normalized, or the path that is considered to be the most standard path, right? And there is society, we've learned through society that there are specific ways of being and there's specific ways of existing and things to do in certain ages. And I think when you're like create this kind of like false sense of security by being in the same place with the same people doing the same things, you have like a sense of safety. And when you travel so much in different places, you actually need to be your own safety. You need to always have a very strong core to like stabilize your own self and always finding ways to, overcome difficulties or overcome different situations. It's definitely more challenging, but I think it's also more rewarding because like it really helps the person develop a very strong sense of self and a very strong sense of like a very good relationship with themselves. And and I think like that's for sure like something that I've seen. I think like at the same time though, and of course that's why I also said cons, right? It's different to have relationships when you travel so much, or it's different to like it's difficult to stick to a specific like schedule. Like you always have to adapt it a little bit because of the time difference, because of the weather conditions, because of the amenities that you might have in the place where you are. And I am at this point, like 4 years later, I am getting ready to have like a place of my own. I think my body actually really needs it. I need like something that is a little bit more like to be more consistent in one place. But I'm also very grateful for the journey that I had so far. And I mean everything that I've seen and I've learned so far. And I feel like there's always going to be more, and like and of course like I don't think I will. It's also like I think that so the reason why I've done it is also because of our lifestyle, right? And you have it as well. Like I've already been like I go to different conferences around the world. I have friends in so many different places. There's all these different lives that I want to live. And I also want to be able to also be like close to different places and to experience different things. That I mean, for me, for example, I would love to be closer to nature as a next destination or a next place. So
Andalusia.
it's not potentially
High chances.
I'm not sure. I'm not craving the urban life, or I'm not craving that kind of stuff. I'm just like I'm just being a thing in different places, right?
Cool. I can relate a lot. I've been on the road quite a lot lately, and I don't know if you ever thought about the angle that sometimes that need to adapt actually becomes your new comfort, and then that's become the risk for you, that you actually don't know how to integrate yourself anymore in some kind of more calm environments. Or myself, I have the need both to stay in one place for longer, and right now it shifted a lot, going more where it makes sense, where I have my closer people with whom I have a closer relationship. So instead of just jumping from one place to another. But I found it also, I had this conversation with a friend a couple of weeks back about like, well, how can you actually develop this kind of execute this one strategy when you're in the constant need for adaptation? You go, you meet people, you change places. Some places you stay 1 month, some places 1 week. And it's always this kind of external environment change, which for me became the new comfort. I assume for you too, it's very comfortable for us. We have our playbook, how to navigate, but then again, it become maybe even too comfortable, and it's an easy kind of escape. I don't know, I like it, but I'm also ready to find something more like kind of in one place and stuff. And how about your relationships? Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say about like what you said about escape. I mean, escapism basically. I do see it, and I do understand when you're normalizing this sort of like life where you're constantly on the move, then this becomes the way that
norm. It's your W function.
Yeah, your norm, exactly. I think though, like people are finding ways to escape. Escapism can exist anywhere. Like you can find escapism in substances or in alcohol, or like relationships. You can escape in different ways as well. Then it's about realizing and being conscious about who you are when you're doing things, but for sure you adapt new skills and you have like new coping mechanisms. So everything in the extreme version, or everything that can be done, like is done to the point of like there's no moderation in it, it can become like it can become an unhealthy situation.
I agree.
Right?
Yeah.
For me, like something that, I mean, because you also mentioned relationship, right? I've been a solo founder or a solopreneur. Again, there's the benefits and the advantages and disadvantages. Like, so as a solopreneur, for example, like you have to make all the decisions by yourself. You don't have that much of an internal support system, because the people that you work with mainly or predominantly are people who are working for you. So you don't have like this kind of like mental bandwidth to like bounce back and forth ideas or to make decisions collectively. People with co-founders would usually complain that, oh my God, I'm in a marriage now and it's very hard for me to like do whatever I want. And I think like as a solopreneur, I'm now accustomed to making all the decisions by myself. I'm pretty sure it would be difficult if I had a co-founder. With everything, like you win some and you lose some, and it's a matter of decision also when it comes to these things. Decide how you can make the life that you have work, and how you can always constantly also looking at the person that you're becoming and evaluating and assessing that is in line with your ethos and integrity and how you actually want to live.
Very well said.
Yeah, it can become a complicated process.
It can be. Sometimes I don't think that we need to overthink that much. Like, and I don't think that we need to put everything in the categories. The way I see it is just why I'm traveling. I'm just too curious since I was a little child, and I want to know how different people think. It just, when you put together different backgrounds, I mean, you learn so much and perspectives, and you learn how to navigate the relationships. But I've noticed that the people with whom I spend most time in some countries or meet are the ones who travel a lot, actually. And then we meet up in some country, or we do some travel batches together. Then you have different stories to share, and not necessarily from the tech scene. It's also from art scene, movie scene, sports. So it's kind of, yeah, super broad. But then we have this bond, which is like travel, sports, surf, and so on. Pretty cool. Talking about co-founders, by the way, I can feel your pain and struggle as a solo founder, but there are still sometimes situations where you meet someone and you match so well to do the business that you have similar view in life, and then you can, without troubles, to actually do the things the way you want. Talking about that, how is it to run business for you while being on the road?
I will take it back to the 2021 when I decided to go, essentially to leave Berlin and go remote. I basically changed the whole company structure. With COVID, I decided to leave our office, which was in Berlin. There were a lot of internal changes that were made, so I decided not to work with full-time employees anymore. So I only work with agencies or partners or freelancers. Right now, my company is totally decentralized. The headquarters are in Berlin, but I have a team in Barcelona, in Holland, in Berlin still, there's one person there, and in Turkey. So it's totally decentralized. And actually the way that it works is either agencies, so they come like, they come as a team themselves. So I only have to work with one person or with partners. So someone who is like at the level where we both are founders of our own thing, and we just come together and decide to do something together. That's how I did the Europas last year, which is actually run by Mike Butcher, and we basically came on the same level, work together equally. I'm like exploring like this different forms of collaborating.
Thanks for sharing. Let's go back a bit again to your solo founder journey, because when you started this whole tech thing, AI and so on, you're a female launching the business in a pretty masculine environment. And we're not talking like in the 2-year span. That was what, a decade ago kind of thing, when you launched and when you started getting engaged into the activities. How was it for you being a female entrepreneur, solo founder? Did you find yourself being uncomfortable in the situations, or you just like business as usual? You were doing your stuff you have to do.
There's a lot of initiatives nowadays, right, to like help and support women and I'm actually also founding member of Thousand Faces, which is specifically trying to create, a community investment club for female-led businesses, and to support and promote female-led businesses. And there's other stuff. And at the beginning, I was also pretty involved in, let's say, initiatives like that. Like there was an initiative by Stanford University called Women in Data Science that I was part of. It always felt more. It always felt easier to walk into a room where there was women in tech, or getting supported by other women in tech founders or people, and to share the struggles. I guess for me, I tried to create space and opportunities for women and underrepresented groups, other minority groups, actually, like people of color or queer people, without necessarily associating the organization like Dataconomy or the natives with that. Just because I thought that actually the best way to create this sort of environment is by putting this kind of people out there as role models. I have to admit that at the beginning, I didn't even think of my gender as like an interesting factor. But, as you grow older, and again, like there's societal expectations, or there's things that you notice that are perceived differently about your gender, which sometimes is also true, right? Because there's different ways of like feminine or masculine approaches, right? And that can actually, it's not necessarily a gendered thing. It's not like a woman or a man thing. It's feminine or masculine. There are traits. There's the way that we are perceiving the world. I've also seen it, right? There's been like remarks made that they could have been, that could have been discouraging. And of course, it is not as easy. But in some ways, in the last years, because of all of these opportunities and because of the attempts and the focus that has been given and put on, I do think that, regardless of how discouraging the numbers are, because if you look at the numbers, actually, they're pretty low, even now, for how many women getting funded or how many, women reach specific like job titles. I did end up going in a lot of meetups, organizing a lot of events where there were more masculine or men representation. I think now like the world is changing slowly, and we understand and we approach like the non-binary movement, or there seems a bit of more understanding of like different perspectives in business or different perspectives in the society. But I think the way business even is done, or the way that business is like positioned, is a very masculine, competitive, aggressive sport. And I'm still wondering now, like as I'm changing as a person and like changing the way I work, how can I integrate what I've seen, and how can like actually build a different kind of business. So for me, like right now, like business, like AI ethics is a big point, or business ethics is a big point, and like alternative ways of leading, or like new ways of leading with a more feminine and more conscious touch, which I think can be actually done through having like diverse people in the room, like, and being more inclusive, and having like different people represented, and and conducting different kind of businesses. I don't know if I answered your question, or if I took you to a complete different place, but like that's how I was thinking about it.
No, you did. You kind of put also different kind of how you say, fishing knots to different angles and directions, but also very interesting thing with this whole change. When you think about also back in the days, now it's a bit more easier, or when you end up in uncomfortable situation, right? Or in very unfamiliar environment, the first thing what you're looking for someone who looks like you, feels like you, vibes like you. And then what it means, if we really want to create those inclusive and diverse environments, it takes an effort. And we as lazy human beings, we don't like to take and make an effort. We like to go through usually familiar tools, familiar environments, and so on. So yeah, it is how it is. It's a human nature, and also this kind of tribal effect, different risk awareness. But I guess we're getting there towards being way more open towards each other, and I really like it. You mentioned one thing about the phrase conscious leadership. And I'm very curious to hear, because when we met each other, we were both very much into the masculine power and very much into the hustling. I mean, lack of sleep, a lot of projects, being everywhere, upfront. I guess maybe for me it was the case, finding it difficult sometimes to say no, maybe. How did this transition happen? What was that pivot moment, maybe, that kind of introduced you to different ways of doing things?
I don't know if it was a moment per se. My life trajectory and my decisions and what has shaped who I am today. When it comes to the leadership, is essentially also what you said before in terms of like being a woman in a male dominated space, where I've actually seen myself incorporating all these masculine traits in order to, let's say, survive in this male dominated world. Well, I would say patriarchal world.
That's
I think it's much more accurate because that system actually affects everybody of all genders. My references and things that really shaped me and changed the way I'm thinking about this is, well, let's say for the wave of founders after the dot boom, which includes Zuckerberg and I would even say Jobs in it. It's like there was a very strong motivation of like move fast and break things, you know? I think even Zuckerberg probably even coined this, right? They were like at the time the World Economic Forum, it released like they always every year they have their like a specific theme, and I believe it was 2020 or 2019, one of those years where they essentially said, well, we need to shift this paradigm and actually focus more on kindness is the new, the new hot topic, like kindness and impact and responsibility. And even like I think this year they focused on rebuilding trust, right? Like creating this sort of like environment. And at the time when I started building my business, which was in a funny way the WeWork era, right? The Meetup and WeWork era.
Yeah.
There was a lot of like around the topic of community and like how can we create a community instead of like marketing and selling. And I think like this, like let's say this kind of concepts started shaping like and shifting things inside of me. And as I was seeing myself like also transforming and becoming like hustling a lot, which of course like I understand you still need to do, right? Or you still need to work hard and there's still a level of like competition or a level of aggressiveness, right? I also realized that I do want to be a person where I'm aligned with myself and good with myself and balanced internally. And that's why I also changed a bit my lifestyle and even like the way I work with partners is that I wanted like something that is instead of like, this urgent culture, like these people who sends email using the subject line urgent in them, like as if something would happen. Yeah, as if something would happen if like you don't respond in the next day. So I was just thinking that, like I just want to be more aligned with myself, be more authentic, maybe. And I have to admit, I'm not sure I'm there yet. I just think it's a process, and it's a process that I'm like transforming myself. Like now I can see it transform, like being more self-aware. When it comes to management, there's a very strong feeling of like, oh, you like as a manager, as a leader, you shouldn't admit to your mistakes, which I think is not right. I think like if anything, owning up to who you are and embracing that you're also a human being that is flawed and you can also be uncertain, or that you can also make mistakes and acknowledge your own vulnerabilities, actually make space for other people to come in your business who actually have the strengths that you're lacking and actually complement you and collaborate in that level. I remember at that time there was also this popular book which was called Radical Candor, and it was about like how to potentially lead with your team and to also like have the tough conversations and be able to like discuss everything with open and transparent way. And I think like that is like that's kind of like the way of like what I would consider like a more feminine approach to leadership, right? A more empathetic approach to leadership, where you see an issue and you actually address it and try to like meet the other person in a human way. And especially now that we're moving towards an era where AI is playing such a big part of how we're going to conduct business, our soft skills and our way of connecting with other human beings is what will really help us, right, to actually continue, and to potentially be together and work. And of course I did it through mistakes, like a lot of mistakes, and potentially losing friendships and people along the way, and also within my team, like there's a lot of things that I've learned and I've seen, and I think like that those are the things that I've learned, that basically like embracing vulnerability, but also like being close and actually like listening and being empathetic and fostering some kind of collaboration. That's really what can be a community driven approach to leadership, and really being conscious about like what and being in check with who you are, and how do you connect with the people that you work with, and I think in that way you can also have like a sense of integrity, because you do you lead by example. You kind of like embrace and showcase what you believe in, and what your values are. And I think the two words here that they are very key for me, and again, like I'm working through them every day. It's like the idea of integrity and the idea of consistency. So
Consistency, 100%. But that can be so hard, like, do you believe like we can build a scaling successful business without sacrificing this kind of, or without impacting our health? Because so far what we see, all the best cases, most of the founders are burned out, a lot of them not really finding time to focus on themselves. And then, yes, we talk about that a lot, and it's really essential to be conscious, to be healthy. But then if you look really close into all those success stories, let's say success based on the criteria of entrepreneurship and different fundraising and exits, all the founders they had to sacrifice some kind of family, relationship, health, and so on in order to get there. Do you think we're gonna kind of change our understanding of success and what is successful business, or we're still in this kind of internal paradox where, yes, we want to be conscious, but we still have to sacrifice things and hustle?
yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I see two different potential trajectories here. I see like on one side, because I mean, we have this system of patriarchal capitalism that exists for centuries, that has been working in one way or another to continue functioning. And of course, like there's like, let's say, ways right now that society has evolved throughout the centuries, where it seems that things are just building up to it, right, from one system to the other, like from the industrial revolution to the internet, from internet now to AI, and there's kind of building blocks. And I think like because of the fact that this exists for so many centuries, there's definitely going to be people who will continue functioning this way. And but I do see that there's like small changes in society and small things that come. Like I don't think like evolution is linear, or like growth is linear, right? It's always feels like, it actually probably even feels like it's a circle that it's going in the, like it's going forward, but it's kind of like a circle, like we take one step front, two step back. So and I think it's like the little things that we can see, like I don't know, for the fact that potentially there was the discussion of introducing the 4-day week, or
Oh yeah.
so like cutting one day off, or in some countries they're very much strict in terms of like employment hours, and employer hours, or like very strict around like mental health. In Spain they introduced the day off, like for women when they have their period, which is also a huge step.
That's a huge step.
I know, right? Like it's
Yeah.
actually like considered now like a sense of like not being fit on the first day, or to actually perform your work. I mean, I'm bringing a lot of like examples from labor workforce, but because I'm thinking that that's the way of building a company, right? And you are focusing more on founders, but I think that in the same way potentially founders also change, right? They see that this is not sustainable, and they will start doing businesses differently and putting themselves boundaries on themselves. I think the thing is, And you're right. It's like fundamentally very difficult and very like when you start your own business, which is kind of like your baby, right? Like even when you I mean, even like in natural terms, like when you are giving birth to a human being, like it takes about 2 years to actually be with that person more, right? So like it takes a lot out of you. So it's like it's normal that in the first time or the first couple of years you will just invest more time because you're trying to birth something that is like bigger than you. So for sure, like I totally agree with you that maybe like we can't see huge changes, but even like small changes in the way that we perceive things and in the little things. So I mean like and how that applies to legislation. Because I mean we first start with giving, you know, with women rights, or we first start with identifying different kind of genders, or we first see that sustainability is a big topic, and like we basically need, you know, there's now like a whole generation of people that are living with a pretty that they know that climate change is gonna impact their life. I mean, you can see it, you can feel it from how the climate is changing, and there's all this new like wave of businesses now just focusing on impact, and even having like shifting the narrative around how impact can be for profit. It doesn't have to be, you know,
Oh yeah.
impact is not only for non-profits or for, you know, for philanthropists. Impact is actually for social entrepreneurs. So I mean, in that way, I can see that maybe potentially like this hustle culture and mental health will become more and more important. I've also seen a lot of founders advocating for mental health, or for, you know, or associations popping up specifically focusing on mental health. So potentially there will be a shift, maybe like small shifts in like different places that we won't see, but you know, it will eventually create a wave that would potentially bring a change. So one trajectory is this that I see, and I think the other one that I also see is that people actually, especially with this digital nomad movement, and I mean maybe it's also from my network and the people that I associate with, but I do see a big change in terms of like moving away from urban centers, moving away from like, you know, from like this kind of typical lifestyle, and going closer to nature, and giving yourself more time to breathe and to, you know, to connect with let's say with ourselves from that
In ourselves, yeah.
perspective, and like being part of regenerative community. What I'm saying is like I also see people who are potentially like deciding themselves to just on a different trajectory, and like, you know, move away from the sort of like the rat race. However, it's the new modern way of like racing as founders or entrepreneurs.
Yeah, cool. Interesting insights. I think like one more to add, maybe new generation is very different, and they just, oh, I don't know, they just hack the formulas, how to make money, how to build businesses from the early age with all the access to technology, which is like speed up their process. And I think some of the people who, depending on, of course, on their environment, they just found that they can maybe not only go to build a funded startup, but there are different ways to do business. And yeah, depends on the personality as well. But I started seeing more, let's say, conscious entrepreneurship in a way that founders started prioritizing better. And instead of trying to break everything and move fast, it seems like more and more founders kind of chooses better priorities, and then when someone doesn't work, they act fast to change it rather than just doing everything. So that was one of the shifts of my work with some founders lately that I noticed from before. That is pretty cool. But one of the things I also know about you, and you're always talk a lot on your LinkedIn network, at your that girl, that woman in AI and ethics. Can you share more what's happening right now with actually AI and ethics? I remember like it was still a couple of years back, there was a huge discussion that it's a big danger for the humanity. We don't have some kind of regulations and aligned principles. How can we use AI, what we cannot do? And people who were not that familiar, afraid of the technology and what it can do. Maybe you can share more from your work and engagement within AI and ethics. Where are we right now? Is there some danger that we should be aware of, or what's happening?
Danger always, like I think like somehow for when it comes to AI, it's either like AI renaissance or Robocop or something like that.
Yeah.
It's never somewhere in the middle. It's
No,
either
no,
like
that's too.
it's gonna like save our lives. Like some people just there's a school of thought that thinks that with AI we don't need to work again, and that with AI basically we're going through the Renaissance times because everything seems to be aligning, and it's this disruption in all of the ways of working, and all of these new job opportunities will come. I mean, that we're gonna lose some jobs, but they're gonna be all these new job opportunities. I mean, when it comes to AI ethics, I guess the fundamental things to look at, which is in line with what we're discussing so far in terms of like diversity and inclusion, is how diverse and inclusive is the data set that you have inserting in the language model that you're operating. So basically, I mean, to simplify this, like if you have a diverse data set, then potentially the results that you're going to get, it's going to be a bit more inclusive or a bit more diverse. And you always need to disclose what kind of data sets you have in order to get to the outcome that you have, that you come. I mean, I don't know if you've seen, for example, like a kind of like known example or a recent example from like diversity and inclusion going bad was Gemini, which is Google's AI tool, where basically it was trying to be so inclusive and diverse that actually we rewrote history and presented like people of color as the founding fathers in the United States, or even Nazis.
Yeah.
So it really like changed the way.
I saw
like
that.
it tried to be so inclusive that it went to the other side. But basically, like that is when it comes to diversity and inclusion. Like essentially, how can you be able to like present as many different data points as possible and have inputted to the machine so that can give you like the results. The one big debate right now that is happening, and you can see it with all of these diverse language models that are out there, is also the topic of openness and transparency. Some AIs are black box, like OpenAI actually in a way, yeah, it's a black box. It's you don't know how it operates. Other ones you can just download and you can potentially play with them. That gives let's say that democratizes AI and gives it the option to be able to operate and play with, and to potentially like improve it, right? That's how systems improve, because other people are using it and they're more accessible, and in that way creates like more trust and accountability, and you can have a more collaborative environment among researchers, developers, policymakers, and the public. So I mean, for me, openness is actually pretty important, and it's definitely something that is like related to like how we can make AI more accessible. Of course, there's also the so-called right now AI wars. Between different companies, as I mentioned, like Google and OpenAI, or well, Google and Microsoft, because Microsoft, a big investor in OpenAI, they are like competing who's going to bring the first model. I mean, now like Apple has already said that they're also going big on AI. Everybody's going big on AI. So there's company wars, but there's also like country wars, like which country would be the best to actually compete in this environment. Would it be the US leading the market, or would it be Europe that is regulating? You mentioned about regulation. I mean, Europe is definitely one continent that is very much focused on the ethics side of things, and they're trying to be as competitive as possible when it comes to like, regulating and setting the tone when it comes to the AI Act. They actually released an AI Act a couple of months ago, and trying to have like this kind of cloud system where you can share data points, so then that can also be more sustainable potentially, also because like when you have all these different data centers and cloud centers, that creates more and more energy. It basically, like when it comes to AI, these are right, like I would say from an ethical and moral standpoint, those are currently the hottest discussions going on. Whether it's going to be good or bad, I wouldn't ask that question anymore. I think like, because AI is here, we cannot do anything to avoid having AI. I would more like think about, okay, AI is here. How can we, like, what can we do, again, in line with who we want to be in this society, to actually be able to either benefit from it, like use it. I mean, basically with AI, and that's one thing that Sam Altman came out and said, you basically can have the next $1 billion company with one person or with a very small team, right? You can optimize your resources so much. So there's definitely going to be a next wave of entrepreneurs who are going to be solopreneurs, or even like one woman, one person show, and they're going to have a $1 billion business. So that's one scenario. There's also the scenario where you can use AI for your advantage to actually optimize your workload, right? You can make your life easier, and potentially work less. I mean, that's, I remember at like last year, I went to a talk that I really enjoyed. And since then I've been like quoting this about how like horses are better as pets than means of transportation. And essentially the whole talk was making a symbolic reference around using AI and optimizing the workload of humans to the point where they don't really need to work, because why do we need to be productive all the time? We're constantly making up work for ourselves, right? Versus like the horses that used to be basically our main means of transportation, they were unhappy, they died young, and essentially then they just became pets because we had the cars. So like, there's like there's like a way of like seeing things evolving to the point where makes life for us as humans happier, because we don't need to actually, like, we don't need to create this kind of like constant hustle and pushing ourselves to the max, because well, we can make our life a bit easier.
How does AI make your life easier?
My life, my specifically,
Yeah.
well, I actually, as a solopreneur, I use it a lot to bounce back and forth ideas about business things, or trying to like time manage my schedule. I use it as like my first point of entry when I'm trying to do a research, or I'm even trying to write something, because then it kind of like helps to organize and structure my thoughts. I also use it for social media and content creation. So when I want to, like potentially like write posts for my different social media outlets. Yeah, I mean, like even for business strategy and planning, I think I mean, like basically can be a good. It's kind of like a good sparring partner for organizing your thoughts and bringing you like first-hand information. But of course, like you always need to double check and test it. And you can't really rely only on it. And I think like, and yeah, I mean, ChatGPT or OpenAI is just one form of like doing these things. I think there's like a lot more tools actually out there that they're helping, which is not only text-based. There's also like video tools now. There's a way with AI that you can you can even record a video and then plug it
Change
and
your
play it.
voice,
Yeah,
or just
change
put
your voice.
yourself into another person. It's really crazy what you can do right now.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
mean,
You
basically,
can also record there is one software that gives you like we speaking now in English. If I would upload it there and I would say, I don't know, make it Polish, that would transform to Polish.
and now
The
you
whole
can make,
conversation.
I mean, music, it changed completely the music industry. You can basically make
Oh,
music, and yeah, you can make
you saw
basically music.
Spotify launched this new feature with your AI DJ something.
I didn't see the Spotify one, but I know like I mean, I've seen there's like different things. I mean, you can pretty much you can put input the data to the machine, and then essentially creates tracks for you.
Yeah,
It creates music for you in the style that you want. It creates images for you in the style that you want. Um, yeah, I mean, and it's the
I
thing
love
is
it.
like The thing is, like, it just grows exponentially, you know? There's really rapid growth. So, like, right now, 50% of the like McKinsey run a study, and they saw that 50% of the companies they surveyed, they already start adopting AI in their functions, which is incredible. That seems like 1 in 2 companies. Or that the World Economic Forum also sees that, for example, there are going to be 133 million new jobs by 2025. I know there's also a lot in the public media, in the mainstream, a lot of information shared around, like, because I mean, with everything that changes, of course, there's fear, right? Because there's uncertainty. You don't know exactly what you're gonna do next. But yeah, I mean, there's I think like somehow the system always corrects itself.
But I think it's also with AI. I don't know, like I see a bright future in many ways, from just people working less, more smart, upgrading their skills. But also for me, I think my main interest is AI for good and for health. I think with education and the health system, if developed right, it will help so much to save so many lives and and to have kind of help people heal. So that's really interesting. Things are happening there with the from diagnostics and all the deep tech stuff to just simple screening things. So it's quite exciting, I would say. So I'm looking forward that maybe next year we're going to be surprised, I guess, for what technology can.
Yeah, I mean, no, I agree. How this will actually pan out in the future and what kind of lives would we be living, because as you said, like with AI, AI in health can actually really help with longevity and predictive medicine, and it can be like a pretty important and helpful tool.
Yeah. So what's next for you now?
I'm gonna go to Vivatech. The immediate plans. I mean, for this year, I'm really focusing on being part of conversations around AI ethics and fairness in AI, or what AI can do for, because all of these different professions like marketing and sales are disrupted, right? So how AI can actually like help those professionals and how would that shape their work?
Awesome.
And I'm also looking into potentially doing some different stuff, also advancing women entrepreneurship and helping out underrepresented groups. So it's going to be a pretty cool, busy year.
That's exciting. I can't wait to follow and see you next time somewhere in the world. So I guess a final question that I ask every guest in this podcast. So what kind of one message you would like to leave our listeners with so everyone could just ponder through the day?
Well, I think like the one thing that I've been thinking about lately a lot for myself is what kind of person do I want to be, and do my actions, and I think that's like in line with conscious leadership, like are my actions in line with who I want to be? So what kind of person do you want to be, and what kind of legacy do you want to leave? That will be the questions that I want to leave the audience with.
Love it. I'll go right now to write down and to review my year too. What's left of the year. Time is flying fast. But thank you so much, Elena, for joining me today. Are there any final thoughts you would like to share?
Keep doing what you're doing. And I love how this like perception paradox podcast actually made me think about my paradoxical perceiving angles, or like my internal contradictions that they're shaping who I am and all the things that I try to do in this world.
Glad to hear that. So final question, where people can follow your journey?
My professional journey for sure on LinkedIn. My more personal connections, Instagram. Okay. And then email. I think the email is still the best way to get in contact with me.
All right. So we're going to make sure that it's in the podcast description. And right now, thank you for joining. And it was Elena and Perception Paradox. And I wish everyone a great day. And see you in 1 week. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.